So I have been going to therapy now for 3 years, and through this time, I've learned so much about myself and my identity and things that I never really understood until this point in time when talking to a therapist. And I felt like I wanted to share this just because I don't hear a lot of people talk about like adoption, and especially like early childhood adoption. So I wanted to kind of share my own story and my own experience, and I feel like I'm going to turn this into like a series of like just me speaking about this, because there's so much, like there's no way I can just cover my whole life story and like everything that I've learned in one video. And also I'm still learning every single day and I'm still figuring stuff out. So this is just going to be like the start. But rewinding to the very beginning, I was adopted from China when I was 18 months old. The first 18 months of my life as is kind of a question mark, but there are some stuff that we know. So I was 2 months old when I was abandoned. So it's the typical one-child policy story where it's like, for whatever reason, my family didn't want to have a child or didn't want to keep me. It could have been the one-child policy. It could have been I had a brother. It could have, whatever. It could have been so many different things. We don't know. So then they left me in a little basket, all bundled up with a note. The note just had my birthday on it, and then someone found me. There's a picture of the guy that found me, and I'll put that picture up on the screen just for fun. But then I was taken to the orphanage, and I lived in the orphanage from 2 months to 18 months. So that's about a year and a half. And then I was adopted by my parents, moved to California. My parents are both white, and I lived there. And then I just grew up as I feel like any normal child would. But I realized that through all the reflection that I've done, I realized my childhood wasn't very normal, and there were a lot of things that like I've never had the opportunity to reflect on, because when you're going through childhood, you just don't think about stuff, and you don't think about the impacts it's going to have on you later on until like you go to therapy, until there's like an issue, right? And then you go to therapy and you do the work, and you try to find the like foundation of what's the problem or what you need to be working on and whatever. So that's what I did, right? And it's interesting because my whole life I've never ever thought too much deeply into race, but I also would kind of use my adoption as like a fun fact. Like I never really thought of myself as adopted. I never thought of it as impacting me as a person, but I literally thought of myself as like Asian on the outside and white on the inside, because I grew up all white. I grew up around white people. My mom also, one thing of context, my mom and dad, we used to go to this like camp every year. It was called like the Children's from China camp, and it was just like a group of girls that were adopted from China. And not to be like offensive, but some of them were like a little bit off, right? And I like would always think like, oh, thank God I like turned out normal, which whatever normal means. But I was like, thank God, like I'm unscathed from this. And even like growing up, like people would mention like my adoption, and they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, like is it hard for you to talk about it? And I'm like, no, I don't care. Like I don't even think about it. Like I don't think about it on an everyday like basis. And I'm like, no, because I don't remember. Basically my mentality was I don't remember anything, so it doesn't matter. It's not sad. I have a happy family now. And I mean, it's the right mentality to have as a kid. But what I'm trying to say is I never really reflected on it, and I never knew any information about impacts of like early childhood, what I experienced and how it would impact me as an adult, until I started going to therapy, if that makes sense. And I started going to therapy my senior year of college, and I started going to therapy just because I was super nervous to graduate college, as anyone is. And I think Mel Robbins kind of explains it well, where it's like graduating college is like the scariest thing ever, because your whole life everyone grows up kind of the same, with the same goals all together, and then when you graduate college, suddenly everything's shifting. You're alone in this world, and it was just a really scary thing. I also loved college, so having to let go of that was like a really scary thing. So I started going to therapy on it because it would really like, I didn't want it to impact my senior year of college and impact the time I was gonna have. So I was like, I gotta go to therapy and get this kind of nipped in the butt. Through going to therapy, I also did group therapy sessions, and quickly I started kind of thinking of a new perspective of like graduating and how exciting it is and whatever. So that was something that really didn't last for too long in terms of things I need to talk about. And so what did happen was I started talking to my therapist about boys and like my experience with boys. And up until this point, and to this day, I've never ever been in anything serious. I never was even thinking about relationships in high school. In the beginning of college, I didn't really think about relationships either until the end of college, and that's where I started getting stuck and like feeling like, oh, I really don't have this figured out when it came to relationships. So that's what I talked to my therapist a lot about, because I constantly found myself in these situations where where I'm seeing someone that like does not want the same thing as me, and I'm like trying to beg someone or try to have them want the same thing as me, but it doesn't happen. And I never thought of myself as like really capable of like being in a relationship. Like the idea of anyone wanting to be in a relationship with me blew my mind, which is an interesting thing to think about, because I didn't think too deeply into it. That's just how I felt. And so I kind of unpacked all of this in therapy, and in there, that's when I started learning like all the impacts like my beginning could have like on my adulthood life, and how they're all directly correlated with each other. And again, I think it's something that people don't talk about, or maybe they do and I haven't seen it, but it's something that I'm like every day like blown away by how much every step of the way that I've been through have gotten me to where I am now. And I think it's fascinating.